I bid you welcome.
It's that time of year once again. When the sun sets earlier and the leaves begin to drop like flies. It's when the public demands to be reminded of mankind's oldest emotion, fear. In other words, it's Halloween once again. The film industry has taken part in creating the reputations for some of the most famous monsters in pop culture. And this month, we're going to explore some of their origins. Welcome to a 4-part retrospective of some of the most famous horror movies of all time. We'll be looking into the original movies of 3 archetypes of horror, and also looking at what's called one of the scariest movies ever made. So join us for Lost Lomas' MonsterVision, exclusively on the Lost Lomas Page's official website. During the early 20th century, many monsters that we know of today got their cinematic start under Universal Studios. By this point in Hollywood history, sound was still new, color was absent, and violence was barely seen on screen. This period in cinema is what movie buffs typically refer to as the Universal era of horror films. While the 1920s had its fair share of scares, it was in 1931 when 2 films introduced audience members to 2 of the most famous monsters of all time. Released at both sides of the year, the 2 most famous names in Hollywood horror would become synonymous with their roles. Tonight, we'll be taking a look at the first film released in that year.
I am Dracula.
Based on the 1897 novel by Bram Stoker, Dracula is the movie that made vampires what they are today. All of the rules about vampires were introduced to the public here. Their mind control abilities, their transformation into bats, and, most importantly, their weaknesses.
If you must go, wear these, for your mother's sake. It will protect you.
However, it isn't the first time Stoker's novel was adapted into film. That title goes to F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu, released in 1922. Because he couldn't get the rights to Dracula from Stoker's widowed wife, Murnau changed the Count's name to Orlok. However, that's not what we're here talking about tonight. Filling the role of the Count is Hungarian actor Bela Lugosi. It's widely accepted that his performance as Dracula is the best in the franchise's history. He definitely steals the show with his hypnotic stare and powerful presence.
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
Every single line he delivers is refined thanks to an impeccable accent.
Listen to them. Children of the night. What music they make.
Lugosi only learned English through the lines he delivered as an actor, so that accent is not on purpose.
I didn't know, but that you might be hungry.
The story centers around Dracula's move from his home, Castlevania, to his subsequent reign of terror in London. His first victim is British solicitor Rhinefeld, played by Dwight Fry, who becomes Drac's assistant.
Master, we're here. You can't hear what I'm saying, but we're here.
As it turns out, the only person who can stop Dracula is Professor Van Helsing, played by Edward Van Sloan. Why? Because for some reason he knows exactly how to kill a vampire. Mirrors, crosses, and a wooden stake are all part of the arsenal. While Lugosi steals the show, Dwight Fry does a great job amplifying the psychotic nature of Rhinefeld. However, Rhinefeld also represents the biggest problem with this movie. With the exception of Lugosi, the acting is very exaggerated and not believable at all.
What have you to do with Dracula?
Dracula?
I never even heard the name before.
While it may not exactly be realistic, it does have a very chilling atmosphere. It's very tame. Keep in mind, cinema was still relatively new, so there's almost no blood to speak of. And that's especially strange when you consider what vampires are known for, sucking blood. It may be slow, but it's really creepy, especially due to the abundance of the archetypes of creepiness. Fog, bats, howling wolves, and almost every scene is at night. But one of the most unnerving parts of the film, and the Universal era in general, is the complete absence of music. With the exception of the title and one scene, the entire film was without music, which is one of the most distinctive parts of the time.
There are far worse things waiting man than death.
Overall, this is a good little flick that requires a lot of patience. It's a historic piece of film that introduced the world to a star that shined within the confines of a coffin. Bela Lugosi would go on to be one of the most popular actors of the first half of the 20th century. Or at least, that's what would have happened if not for a mad scientist's failed experiment. But we'll talk about that next time. Tune in next week for part 2 of Los Lomas' MonsterVision, exclusively on the Los Lomas Page's official website.